Hello everyone, I am Mr. Night Truth. I know many of you enjoy listening to these videos as you fall asleep. So before you drift off, I'd love for you to leave a comment letting me know where in the world you're tuning in from. And if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Alright, now let's get comfortable, relax, and let's go down into the story.
Story number. If you ever drive through Route 66 at night and see a flickering neon sign that says, "Rest Easy Motel," don't stop. Don't even look at it, because the moment you pull into the lot, you're already on the list. I didn't believe that when I took the job, but I've cleaned too many rooms that weren't supposed to exist. I don't remember applying for this job. That's the part that always messes with me when I think back. One day I was driving through the desert with a busted radiator. The next I was standing under a flickering neon sign that said "Rest Easy Motel," holding a set of keys and a contract I swear I never signed. The air smelled like burnt dust and something sweeter, almost like bleach left too long in the sun. The owner, a short man named Mr. Hartley, had this thin smile that didn't move his eyes. He handed me a single sheet of paper, yellowed at the edges, with the motel's night shift rules. I remember laughing, thinking it was some desert town prank, but he didn't laugh back. Rule 1, never rent room 9. Rule 2, never answer the phone after 3:13 a.m. Rule 3, never, under any circumstance, turn off the neon sign. When I looked up from the list, Hartley was already staring past me, like someone was standing behind my shoulder. I turned, nothing there but the sand swirling in the parking lot. He said, "If you can follow those, you'll last longer than the last guy." I asked, half joking, "And how long did he last?" Hartley took too long to answer, long enough to know the rules weren't a joke. That should have been my cue to leave. But I needed the money, and honestly, something about the stillness of that place felt right to me. Quiet, predictable, safe. At least that's what I told myself. The first few nights were normal enough. I'd clean rooms, refill the vending machines, and watch tumbleweeds roll by under a bleeding sunset. The desert had a rhythm, and I liked pretending I could feel it breathing. Sometimes I'd hum along with the buzzing neon sign. It never went dark, always humming like a pulse above the office window. But on the third night, I noticed something strange. Every single room was occupied. I'd seen the guests check in myself, the truck driver, the honeymoon couple, the old man who smelled like gasoline. Yet when I looked out through the dusty blinds, the vacancy sign still blinked, letter by letter, as if daring someone else to pull in. I thought maybe the wiring was old, so I called Hartley to ask. His voice on the line sounded wrong, like a recording played too slow. He said, "It's working fine, Eli. The sign knows when there's room." Then he hung up. I didn't sleep after that. I started noticing little things. Smudged fingerprints on keys that hadn't been used, footsteps outside room 9 when the room should have been locked. I asked Hartley who stayed there before me. He told me not to worry about staff history. His eyes, they were strange, not glowing, not inhuman, just wrong, like the color didn't match the rest of him. I tried describing them once in my journal, but every time I reread the entry, the words had changed. Around midnight, a guest came to the counter, asking for towels. As she left, she pointed toward the far corner of the lot. "Someone's standing out there," she whispered. When I looked, I saw only heat distortion, the kind that dances on the asphalt. But it lingered too long, tall still, watching. The next time I blinked, it was gone. At 2:45, the wind picked up hard. The neon sign buzzed louder, brighter, almost angry. I swear the letters rearranged for a split second. Vacancy became "come in." My stomach dropped. I thought maybe I dozed off and dreamed it. But when I went outside, I found footprints in the sand leading straight from the highway to room 9. Bare feet. Small, like a woman's. I told myself they must have been there already. That the wind just uncovered them. That's what I said out loud. To nobody. Inside, the front desk phone began to ring. Once. Twice. I glanced at the clock. E12 a.m., my hand hovered over the receiver. I told myself if it hit 3:14, I'd answer, just to prove the rules were nonsense. The phone stopped at 3:13 exactly, and the neon outside went dead. No sound, no light, just the desert swallowing the dark. Then, from somewhere deep down the hall, a door creaked open. I thought maybe it was the wind, but the air was still. My flashlight barely worked, but when I pointed it toward the noise, I saw it. Room 9's door, swinging slowly. Hartley had told me it was locked from the inside, but it wasn't. And the sign outside, the one that had gone dark, flashed back to life. Only now, it said, room available. I wanted to call Hartley, but my hands were shaking so hard I dropped the phone. The receiver hit the desk, and I swear, I heard breathing on the other end. Not static, breathing. Slow. Careful. Listening. That's when I saw the paper of rules again, fluttering under the desk lamp. Someone had added a 4th line in pencil. Rule 4. Do not ignore the vacancy. I could have sworn it wasn't there before, but maybe I just hadn't noticed. Maybe I didn't want to. When dawn finally came, Hartley returned. I told him the sign went out, that room 9 was open, that someone might have broken in. He smiled like it was a joke he'd heard before. It does that sometimes, he said. Nothing to worry about. He started to leave, but I asked him something. I still don't know why. Why does the vacancy never go out? He turned to me, and those strange eyes caught the morning light. Because, Eli, he said, someone always leaves. He walked away before I could ask who, and later that afternoon, while I was cleaning the lot, I found a name tag half buried near room 9. The plastic was cracked, sun-bleached, but the name was still legible, Eli. I didn't open room 9. Not that night, not ever. At least, that's what I keep telling myself. After that first week, the rules started to feel like a joke that only I wasn't in on. Hartley came by every few days to collect cash and drop off supplies, never staying long. He'd always ask, "You've been following the rules, right?" In that dry, patient tone, like he already knew the answer. I'd nod. He'd smile, but once, when his hand brushed mine, I felt the faintest tremor, like his skin was colder than it should have been. The desert had changed by then. Nights felt heavier, like the air was full of static. The sign still flickered vacancy, even when every room was full, and I started to think maybe it wasn't advertising to people at all. Maybe it was calling something else. Then came the man with no ID. He pulled up in a grey Buick just after sunset, the kind of car that looks 10 years out of time. His headlights didn't work, and yet somehow he found the motel easily. He stepped out slow, holding a folded wad of cash. "Need a room," he said. "All booked," I told him, glancing at the key rack. Every peg was empty except one. "Room 9. He must have seen where my eyes landed because he smiled, thin and knowing. "That one looks free." I started to explain the rules, but the words came out soft, uncertain. He placed 3 crisp $100 bills on the counter. For one night. Cash. No ID. I told him I couldn't. I swear I did. But the money, there was something about the smell of it, the way it crackled in my hand. It felt like permission. I hesitated only a second before reaching for the key. As I slid it across the counter, the lights flickered. The neon outside dimmed to a heartbeat glow. The man looked up, as if listening to something distant, and said quietly, "It's been waiting." He took the key and walked down the hall without another word. That's when I noticed something I can't explain. There were 10 doors in the hallway, not 9. But when I blinked, when I looked again, only 9. I stayed at the desk all night, pretending to do paperwork. At 2 a.m., the phone rang once, then stopped. From somewhere down the corridor came a low humming sound, like a generator running underwater. It wasn't coming from room 9. It was coming through it. Around 3 hours, I saw something move on the security monitor, a flicker of static, a shape near the door of room 9. The man was standing there, facing the camera, still as a statue. He didn't move for almost a full minute, and then his mouth opened. No sound, just static, but I could read his lips. "You let me in." The monitor went black. When I went to check, the door to room 9 was closed again. No noise, no light from under the frame. I told myself it was a dream, or maybe a power glitch, but the smell hit me. Sharp, metallic, like rust and burnt wires. I locked myself in the office until sunrise. Hartley showed up early that morning, smiling like he'd been awake all night. "Rough shift?" he asked. I told him what happened. The man, the video feed, the smell. He didn't react. Just poured himself coffee from the pot that had been cold for hours. "There hasn't been a working camera in that hallway since April," he said. I wanted to argue, but he handed me the tape from the night before. When I played it, it showed nothing. No man, no static, no room 9 at all. Just an empty hallway. He left without another word. I spent the rest of the day cleaning the other rooms, anything to distract myself. Every so often, I'd glance toward the end of the hall where room 9 sat. The number plate looked wrong now, like it had been carved deeper into the door overnight. I thought about unlocking it just to prove nothing was inside. At dusk, I found the key still missing from the board. That's when I noticed something I'd never seen before. Another paper tucked behind the front desk ledger. My name was typed at the top. Under duties, someone had written, "Maintain room 9. Do not disturb occupant." Occupant. That word sat in my head like a splinter. I told myself it was leftover paperwork from a previous guest, or maybe the last guy Hartley mentioned. But the handwriting, it looked like mine. That night, around 3:10, the phone began to ring again. This time I didn't pick it up. I sat there frozen, counting each ring. 7, 8, 9. It stopped. Then, a soft knock at the door behind me, the one leading to the back hall. When I turned, I could see the faint outline of someone standing just beyond the frosted glass. A man's shape. Still, waiting. I told myself it was Hartley. Maybe he'd forgotten something. Maybe it was a delivery. Anything but what it really was. I reached for the handle, heart pounding, and the figure spoke, muffled, but clear enough. "You let me in once, Eli." My hand froze. "I didn't open room 9, I whispered. "I didn't..." But when I looked again, the hallway was empty. I stayed awake until morning, staring at that frosted glass. Every few minutes, I thought I saw a shadow pass. When the sun finally came up, the glass was clean, too clean, like someone had wiped it from the other side. I told Hartley the next evening that I wanted to quit. He said I couldn't. "The motel doesn't like vacancies," he told me, voice calm as ever. "Not in the staff either." He smiled again. Those same strange eyes reflecting the red neon glow. And just before he turned to leave, I could have sworn the reflection in his glasses wasn't mine at all. I used to think ghosts were quiet. Turns out they breathe. You just have to stand still long enough to hear it. After the night of the man in room 9, the air around the motel changed. The neon hum wasn't background noise anymore. It was a heartbeat. A warning I kept ignoring. Hartley stopped showing up in person. He'd call once a day, ask if Everything was running smoothly, and hang up before I could answer. The line always clicked 3 times before going dead, like someone else was listening. By the 5th night, I started leaving the office door open. The silence was worse than the wind outside. That's when I first saw her. It was 2:04 a.m. I remember the time because the ice machine outside the window had started grinding on its own, even though nobody had used it. The sound drew me out of the office and into the courtyard. The air was freezing, and the desert never gets that cold. Not in June. She stood by the ice machine, barefoot, hair hanging in her face. Her nightgown was too thin for the weather, pale against the rusted metal. She wasn't moving, just staring at the neon sign as if it were saying something only she could read. I called out, softly at first, "Ma'am, are you a guest here?" She didn't answer. The light flickered once, washing her in red, and for a split second she looked familiar. The shape of her jaw, the tilt of her head, like someone I should have recognized. But then the sign buzzed again and she was gone. Just gone. I told myself it was exhaustion, hallucination, guilt playing tricks on me. But the next night she came back. Same spot, same silence. Only this time, her hair was wet, dripping into a puddle that didn't freeze or spread, just stayed there, like it didn't belong to this world. I wanted to call Hartley, but when I lifted the phone, the line was already open. Someone was whispering on the other end, rhythmic, breathy, almost like counting. 9, 9, 9. I hung up. When I looked outside again, she was staring straight at the office window, not moving, just breathing. I blinked, and she was gone again. The next morning, one of the guests complained about a woman crying by the vending machines. I asked what she looked like. The guest hesitated. "Like you," he said. Then he left without checking out. By that point, I'd stopped pretending things were normal. The motel wasn't right. The room smelled like rain that never came. The hallways echoed longer than they should have, but I couldn't leave. Every time I thought about driving away, I'd picture her face, half seen, half remembered, and my chest would tighten until I couldn't breathe. I checked the security footage again. Nothing by the ice machine, nothing in the courtyard. But at the exact moment I remembered seeing her, the camera caught something else. Me, standing outside, alone, staring into the dark. I should have stopped there, but I had to know. That night, I left the office door unlocked and waited. Around 1:50, the air turned cold again, and I heard soft humming. The same melody that played from the vending machine speakers when they jammed. I stepped outside. The moon was hidden behind clouds. The neon flickered weakly. She was there, closer this time. I could see her eyes. Not dead, just tired like she hadn't slept in years. "Who are you?" I asked. She tilted her head. Her lips moved, but the sound came from somewhere behind me. "You left me there." I turned. No one. When I faced her again, she was gone. In her place, on top of the ice machine, sat a single motel key. Room 9. The tag was cracked. The number faded, but I recognized it instantly. The same key I'd given the man. That night, I dreamed of water running under the floorboards, a door opening in slow motion, and a pale hand dragging across tile. When I woke, my sheets were damp, and my uniform shirt was folded neatly beside me, still wet. I told Hartley the next evening. He didn't sound surprised. "You saw her," he said simply. "She's not," I began, but he cut me off. "She only shows herself to those who've let her in." His voice was calm, almost kind. Then the line clicked twice. Static. A faint whisper. "Don't talk to her again." The call ended. That night, I tried to follow that advice. I stayed in the office, headphones in, eyes on the clock. But around 2 a.m., the lights dimmed, and the hum of the neon shifted pitch. The ice machine started grinding again. I looked up. Reflex, nothing more. And she was standing right outside the window, palm flat against the glass. Her lips moved again. "You left the door open!" The power surged. The lights went black. When I came to, the sun was already up, the courtyard empty. The ice machine was spotless, like it had never been used. But the puddle, the same puddle of still dark water, was back. I tried mopping it up, but it wouldn't soak. The towel just came away dry, like the water wasn't really there. That afternoon, I checked the guest book again. Room 9 still listed the man's name, though I'd never written it down. Eli Hartley. For a long moment, I just stared at the name. Then I realized Hartley had never told me his first name. I didn't tell anyone after that. Not even when the guests started leaving without warning. Not even when the vacancy sign burned brighter every night. Because by then, I'd started to understand something. The girl by the ice machine wasn't haunting the motel. She was waiting, and if I didn't find out what for, she'd stop waiting and start coming inside. The rules were supposed to keep me safe, but that night, they followed me instead. For days, I tried to convince myself I was imagining it. The girl, the voice, the key. I told myself the desert heat was getting to me, that loneliness was playing tricks. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. The motel wasn't a place anymore. It was a trap with walls made of light and silence. The vacancy sign had started humming louder each night, its glow pulsing through my blinds like a heartbeat. Guests came and went, but I barely saw their faces. They'd leave their keys on the counter and hurry off without a word. Once I watched a family of 3 drive away before dawn, their suitcases still sitting by the curb. That's when the storm rolled in. Out here, storms don't sneak up on you. They crawl. The clouds came like bruises across the horizon, and the desert started to tremble before a single drop fell. I remember the taste of iron in the air, the way the neon lights flickered, bleeding red across the parking lot. It was 3 a.m. when the first thunder cracked. The sound rattled the window panes and made the "Rest Easy" sign stutter to half light. The vacancy sign buzzed harder, and for the first time since I'd worked there, it went dark. Everything went dark. The silence was suffocating. I groped for my flashlight, but before I could find it, the phone rang. 1 ring, then another, then a third. I froze. My mind screamed the time, 3:13 a.m. Every instinct told me not to answer, but I did. I don't know why. Maybe curiosity, maybe guilt, maybe because I was tired of being afraid of my own job. I pressed the receiver to my ear and said, "Front desk." The line hissed with static, and beneath it a voice whispered, "Clear and close. You left the door open." I didn't speak. Couldn't. My hand trembled so violently that the cord rattled. The voice came again, this time softer, more familiar. "You promised you'd keep it closed." Then the line went dead. Outside, a door slammed. Hard. The echo rolled down the hallway, followed by slow, wet footsteps. I told myself it was the wind. The storm, anything. But when I looked up, the office door was swinging slightly, and beyond it, at the end of the corridor, room 9. Its door was open. Lightning flashed, and for a split second, I saw water trickling from the threshold, thin as veins. My flashlight barely worked, but I stepped toward it anyway. The air felt thick, damp, and warm, like stepping into a lung. The hallway lights flickered as I walked, and in each flicker, I caught glimpses of things that shouldn't be there, shapes on the walls, faces half seen in reflections. When I reached room 9, the door creaked wider on its own. I told myself I wouldn't look inside, but I did. The smell hit first, iron and mold, and something sweet underneath. The carpet was soaked. Water pooled around my shoes, rippling even though there was no wind. The bed was stripped bare. On the wall above it hung photographs, dozens of them, taped in neat, precise lines. Every photo showed the same thing: me. Cleaning rooms, standing at the front desk, walking down this hallway, each one from a different angle, like someone had been following me for weeks. Then I saw the last photo, tacked in the center. It showed me standing right where I was now, at the doorway of room 9, staring back into the lens. Only I hadn't been here before. My stomach dropped. I stumbled backward, slipping in the water, and the flashlight hit the floor. The beam landed on something in the corner, a chair, a figure sitting in it. I thought it was the man, the one from the Buick. But when I got closer, my knees almost gave out. It was me, or something wearing my face. Its eyes were open, staring blankly ahead, lips moving soundlessly. I could hear faint breathing, shallow and uneven, but its chest didn't rise. I reached out, slowly, stupidly, and the figure's head turned just enough to whisper, "You left her there." Then everything went black. When I came to, I was lying behind the front desk, soaked to the skin. My watch read 7:45 a.m. The sky outside was clear, as if the storm had never happened. The vacancy sign glowed steadily again. I checked room 9. The door was closed, dry, locked. I told myself it was a nightmare, that exhaustion made me imagine the whole thing. But when I looked at my uniform, I noticed something that turned my stomach. Tiny fragments of wet paper stuck to the fabric. Photograph paper. Hartley showed up just after noon. Same calm expression, same soft voice. "Rough night?" he asked. I didn't answer. I just held up one of the torn photos. It showed my back, standing over a woman's body on the motel floor. Her face wasn't visible, but her hair, dark, wet, matched the girl by the ice machine. Hartley sighed. "You weren't supposed to go in there." "Who is she?" I demanded. He smiled, slow and cold. "You tell me." Then he handed me a clean shirt and said, "Keep the sign lit tonight. It's important the vacancy stays open." I almost quit right then. I should have. But when he left, I caught my reflection in the office window. Tired eyes, pale skin, lips murmuring something I couldn't hear. The sign outside flickered once, buzzing louder than ever. For a split second, it didn't say vacancy. It said, "Welcome back." And that's when I realized the rules weren't about keeping something out. They were about keeping me in. They say no one really checks out of this place. But that morning, I decided I was going to try. When I woke up, the clock on the front desk read 11:11 a.m. But the sun outside looked wrong, too low, too still. The world beyond the glass didn't shimmer like desert heat. It quivered, like water on the edge of boiling. I thought maybe I was still dreaming, but the taste of metal in my mouth told me I was awake. The air reeked faintly of ozone and something sour, like rain on blood. Hartley was gone again, of course. He always vanished during the day, leaving the office heavy with the smell of his aftershave and the hum of that cursed neon sign. I thought about packing up, walking down the road, catching a ride, anything to get away from this desert grave of a motel. But when I opened the drawer to grab my keys, I found a note folded inside, typed on the same paper as the rule sheet. It read, "You're not finished yet. Guests are still waiting to check out." My hands went cold. There were no guests left. Everyone had checked out yesterday. Every room was empty, except room 9. The memory of the photographs, the other me, made my throat close up. I wanted to tear the note in half. But something about the calm precision of those words froze me. Whoever or whatever had written it knew me better than I knew myself. I looked out at the parking lot. The sand had begun to creep over the asphalt again, covering the tire marks. Only one car sat there now, a pale green Buick, the same one I'd seen before. Its windows were fogged from the inside. I stepped out into the heat. The wind was gone, the silence pressing on my ears. When I reached the Buick, I wiped the glass with my sleeve. The driver's seat was empty, but the back seat wasn't. Someone was sitting there. At first, I thought it was the girl. Her hair was the same, damp and dark, but her skin looked translucent, almost paper thin. She was wearing a motel uniform, my uniform, and her face was turned toward me, eyes open, mouth slightly parted. I took a step back. My stomach lurched when I realized it wasn't her. It was me again. The same face, same uniform, same faint bruise on the temple from when I fell in room 9. Only this version of me wasn't breathing. There was a key on the seat beside him. Room 9's key. Attached was a note that read, in that same neat type, "Checkout time, 3:13 a.m. That was it. I dropped the key and ran. I didn't even grab my bag. The desert stretched out around me in every direction, a white blur beneath a trembling sky. I ran until my lungs burned, until the motel was nothing but a smudge on the horizon. When I finally stopped, I turned to see if it was still there. It was. The vacancy sign still glowed, impossibly bright even in daylight. And then I saw something that made my skin crawl. The sign didn't face the highway anymore. It faced me. I stumbled backward, dizzy, and fell into the sand. That's when I noticed the footprints, hundreds of them circling the motel, all mine. Every step I'd taken led me right back. By the time I reached the road, dusk was already falling. My phone had no signal. My watch kept skipping minutes, and the sun hung too long above the dunes, refusing to set. I told myself if I could just make it to the next town, I'd forget all of this, chalk it up to heat stroke, hallucination, something rational. But that night, as I followed the faded lines of Route 66, headlights appeared behind me. A car. I waved it down, desperate. It slowed. The driver's window rolled down, and Hartley leaned out, smiling that soft, tired smile. "Long shift, huh?" he said. "You look exhausted." I couldn't move, couldn't speak. He opened the passenger door. "Come on, Eli, you'll catch cold out here." I don't remember getting in. I only remember the hum of the tires on the cracked road and the flicker of neon growing brighter on the horizon. When the motel came back into view, it looked exactly as I'd left it. Lights buzzing, doors closed, vacancy sign steady and strong. Hartley parked, turned off the engine and said, "You're home." I tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. I looked over at him. His eyes were on the sign, glowing red through the windshield. "It doesn't like it when you leave," he murmured. "None of us do." "Us," I whispered. He smiled wider, and for a second, I saw the same flicker in his pupils I'd seen in the vacancy light. Something moving inside. You'll understand after tonight. I must have blacked out because the next thing I knew, I was behind the front desk again. Everything was exactly as before. The same clock, the same hum. Only one thing was different. A guest book sitting open, freshly inked with names I didn't recognize, except for one. Eli Grant. Checked in. 1974. My hands began to shake. I wasn't even born in 1974. The front door creaked open. The bell above it jingled once. A shadow fell across the counter. I looked up. It was another traveler, dusty and sweating from the road. He smiled nervously and said, "Hey, you got any rooms left?" Before I could answer, my mouth spoke for me, steady, calm, rehearsed. "Sure, we've got a vacancy." The words came too easily, like I'd said them 1,000 times before. As I reached for the register, my reflection in the office window looked back at me. It smiled first, and behind me in the glass, the vacancy sign flickered once, then went dark. Story number. They told you the town emptied overnight because of a monster. That's not true. The truth is, I stayed. I stayed when everyone else ran, and if I tell you why, you'll never sleep again. You've probably heard the story already. The one about how everyone in Portlock fled overnight, abandoning their homes, their jobs, their whole lives, because of some monster in the woods. But what if I told you that isn't how it happened? What if I told you the monster wasn't what they thought it was? I was there. I stayed behind when everyone else left, and I've carried that choice with me ever since. People like neat answers. They like legends that fit into headlines. Nantinak drove the people out. It's easier to believe that than to face the real reason a whole community can dissolve in silence. It's easier to say a hairy, ape-like beast roamed the forest, snatching men, scattering bones in the creek. A myth is clean, but the truth, it rots inside you. The truth stains everything. When I talk about Portlock, I can still see it. The fog curled around the cannery like a shroud, the smell of fish oil clinging to the air, the tides rolling in black and heavy. Houses stood pressed together, their wood bleached grey by salt winds. Even now, if I close my eyes, I can picture laundry frozen stiff on clotheslines, boots lined neatly on porches, lamps left burning behind thin curtains. It wasn't empty when I first began to notice the cracks, but it felt empty, like the soul of the town had already slipped out, leaving the bodies to catch up later. I was a teenager then, but old enough to know when adults were lying. They whispered about the Nantinak, always when they thought no one younger was listening. The stories didn't match. Some said it stood 12 feet tall. Others swore it looked almost human. Some described tracks wider than a frying pan, prints that vanished halfway through a trail, and still others insisted they'd seen nothing at all, that it was hysteria and nothing more. But hysteria doesn't make families disappear. I remember the first house. We woke one morning to find the Rasmussens gone. Husband, wife, 3 kids, breakfast still on the table, oatmeal crusted in bowls. The back door swung open, screen tapping in the wind, and in the mud behind the house, prints, huge, misshapen, toes splayed like they'd been clawed into the earth. I never forgot those. Of course, everyone panicked. The elders said the Nantinak had taken them. My brother, he never bought it. He laughed, said people will believe anything if you give them shadows and silence. But I could see something different in his eyes. Something he didn't want me to notice. Fear, maybe, or knowledge. That's the thing about my brother. He thought he was smarter than the rest of us. He carried his secrets the way other men carried rifles. Close to the chest, always loaded. I won't tell you his name yet. Not yet. Saying it out loud makes my tongue feel heavy. Still, I followed him everywhere. I was the little brother, desperate for scraps of his attention. He tolerated me, most of the time. On nights when the fog was so thick you could taste the salt, he'd let me trail behind him to the docks. He'd stand there, listening, as if the water itself was whispering to him. Sometimes he'd mutter things under his breath, words I couldn't catch. When I asked, he'd just shake his head. You don't want to know, he'd say. But I did. God, I did. The vanishings multiplied. One fisherman never came home. Another was found mauled, though no one could agree whether it was bear, machine, or something worse. Mothers pulled their children indoors. Doors stayed locked, windows shuttered. You could feel the tension pressing on the town like a storm front. And still, nobody left. Not yet. I think it's because leaving meant admitting defeat. We were proud people. We believed we could outlast anything, weather, hunger, even death. But pride doesn't fill an empty crib. Pride doesn't scrub blood out of snow. I need to tell you something here, but I have to be careful. You'll hear the official version in the old newspaper clippings. Residents driven out by fear of attacks. That's the public record. What isn't written is how my brother started keeping notebooks. Dozens of them. He wrote down everything. Rumors, sightings, names of the missing. Sometimes drawings. Dark shapes with shoulders hunched, eyes hollow. I saw those pages once when he wasn't looking. I wish I hadn't, because here's the truth. The drawings didn't look like monsters. They looked like men. The last week before the town emptied, I remember standing outside the schoolhouse, listening to the silence. No children laughing, no lessons echoing, just the wind and the far-off groan of the sea. I thought maybe the whole world had ended and no one told me. My brother came up behind me, put a hand on my shoulder. "It's starting," he whispered. "What's starting?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just looked toward the tree line, where the forest swallowed the horizon. That night, I dreamed of the Rasmussen kids. Their faces were pale, eyes black like tide pools. They reached for me, but when I tried to grab their hands, they dissolved into fog. I woke up choking, lungs full of salt. My brother was sitting at the foot of my bed watching. "You were talking in your sleep," he said. What did I say? He only shook his head, scribbled something into his notebook, and left the room. After that, I stopped asking questions. By the time the exodus came, it was sudden, but not unexpected. Families packed what they could carry, loaded boats, and vanished into the grey water. They left food half-cooked, photographs still framed on the walls. It was like they wanted to erase themselves in a single breath. And maybe they did. You want to know the strangest part? Nobody talked about it. No meetings, no arguments, no final goodbyes. Just a collective silence, like an unspoken agreement had been made. By dawn, Portlock was hollow. And yet, I stayed. My brother stayed too, though he wouldn't look at me those first days. He wandered between empty houses, jotting notes, tracing those prints in the mud with his fingers. Once I caught him laughing, not the good kind of laugh, the broken kind, jagged and thin. I should have left then. I should have run like the rest, but I didn't. Because here's the truth. The town didn't vanish overnight. It rotted slowly, piece by piece, until all that was left were two brothers and a silence too heavy to carry. And if you really want to understand why the people fled, you'll need to hear what happened to my brother. You want to know about my brother? Everyone does. They think if they can pick apart his journals, his whispers, his long nights in the woods, then they'll find their neat explanation. A monster, a killer, a scapegoat. But I'll tell you what I told the investigators later. His story doesn't fit into anyone's box. Not neatly, not safely. After the town emptied, it was just us. Two brothers in a hollow shell of streets and houses that echoed with absence. The silence was worse than the noise ever had been. You could hear your own heartbeat in that place, like the air itself was listening. And my brother, he thrived in it. He said the quiet gave him clarity. I'd wake at night and find him gone. I knew better than to follow at first. But curiosity is a poison, isn't it? It seeps in slow until you can't resist. One night, I trailed him through the fog, my breath catching with every step. He moved like he knew exactly where he was going, boots silent on wet ground. He carried no lantern, no gun, only that battered notebook pressed under his arm. We reached the tree line, where the forest swallows you whole. I should have turned back. I didn't. That's when I heard it, a sound that wasn't his footsteps or mine. Heavy, rhythmic, like something walking just beyond sight, matching our pace. My brother froze, head tilted, listening. And then, this part I almost can't describe, he smiled. "Do you hear it?" he whispered. I wanted to say no. I wanted to say yes. Instead, nothing came out. My throat locked. We stood there, the fog thick as wool, and I swear the trees bent closer, as if straining to hear us. Then my brother raised his hand and made a motion, slow and deliberate, like he was signaling something. And the sound, the footsteps, stopped. That's when I ran. I don't even remember my feet moving. Just the burn in my lungs when I collapsed back in town. My brother returned hours later, calm as if he'd gone for a stroll. His boots were muddy, his hands were shaking, but he said nothing. He never did. After that, I couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't just looking for the Nantinaq. He was speaking to it. His notebooks became obsessive. I caught glimpses, drawings of figures half hidden in fog, notes scrawled so fast they looked like scratches. Dates, times, places. He charted the disappearances like a hunter tracking prey, or maybe like a priest recording rituals. I couldn't tell. One night I confronted him. "What are you doing out there?" I demanded. He stared at me, eyes hollow, jaw tight. "You wouldn't believe me," he said. "Try me." He closed the notebook slowly, as if weighing whether to let me in. Then he leaned forward, his voice low, confessional. "It's not one monster," he said. "It never was. It's us. I didn't understand. Maybe I still don't." He explained, or tried to, that the Nantinaq wasn't a thing you could see clearly. It wasn't a beast with claws and teeth. It was a reflection, a mask. Something that took the shape of what people most feared. He claimed when the Rasmussens vanished, he'd seen shapes in the fog, children with empty eyes, calling to him. He said if you listened too long, it pulled something out of you, left you hollow. "Maybe that's why they left," he said. "They were becoming it." His words crawled under my skin. Was he warning me or accusing me? I laughed, bitter, sharp. "You sound insane." He didn't argue. He just opened his notebook again and kept writing. After that, he stopped hiding his late-night wanderings. Sometimes he'd beckon me to join. Sometimes I did. What I saw, I still don't know how much of it was real. Shapes moving through fog where there shouldn't have been shapes. Trees bent and splintered, as if something huge had passed. Once, a low moan carried through the valley. Not animal, not human. My brother dropped to his knees when he heard it, scribbling frantically even as tears streaked his face. And then, he vanished. It was early morning. I woke to his bed empty, blankets cold. His notebook sat on the table, open to a page that chilled me. A sketch of a figure standing at the edge of town. The figure had my face. I searched for him all day, through abandoned houses, along the rocky shore, into the forest paths he loved. Nothing, just silence. At dusk I reached the creek. That's when I saw it, a smear of blood on the stones, his jacket tangled in branches, and beyond, half submerged in water, what I thought was a body. I rushed forward, but the moment my hands touched it, it dissolved into nothing but soaked fabric and mud. No body, no brother. I screamed his name until my throat tore. No answer. Just the echo of my own voice bouncing back, warped and broken. Did I imagine it? Did I see his corpse, or just my own terror reflected in the water? Even now I can't say. When I stumbled back into town, something in me had shifted. I kept replaying his words. It's not one monster. It's us. Was he warning me he'd become it, or that I already had? The following nights blurred. I swear I heard him outside the house pacing, whispering. I'd fling open the door and find only fog curling in the street. Once I swear I saw him in the window across from mine, standing still, watching. But when I ran over, I don't know. I'll never know. The truth is, maybe I didn't find his body but the house was empty, dust thick on the floorboards. I tried to write it off as grief, exhaustion, but the scratches in his notebooks haunted me. I read them by lantern light until my eyes burned. The last page chilled me most. It chose him, not me. Was he writing about me? Or as there wasn't one? Maybe he walked into the fog and never came back. Or maybe I found him, and I just can't admit what I did with him. Sometimes when the silence is too heavy, I wonder if I killed him. And if I did, well, the town believed me when I said the monster took him. They wanted to believe it. It's easier to blame the shadows. But shadows don't laugh in your voice. Shadows don't wear your brother's face, and sometimes, late at night, I still hear him, calling my name. You want to understand my brother. Everyone thinks if they can figure him out, the rest of the story will make sense. But that's the problem. You can't make sense of him. Not then, not now. The truth slips through your fingers like fog. And every time I try to hold it, it reshapes itself into something else. After the town emptied, it was just the two of us. Two brothers in the middle of a place that felt less like a town and more like a graveyard. The silence was so thick it pressed on your chest, made every breath feel stolen. The wind had stopped carrying voices, laughter, arguments, just emptiness. That's when he started changing. At night, I'd wake to find his bed cold. I'd hear the door creak, his footsteps vanishing into the fog. He never took a lantern, never carried a rifle, just that notebook tucked under his arm. Always the notebook. I told myself not to follow him. I told myself I didn't want to know. But lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence breathe, it drove me insane. So one night I followed. The fog was thick, the kind that swallows sound. My brother moved ahead of me like he'd walked that path 100 times. His boots didn't make a sound on the wet ground, but mine did. Every crunch of gravel felt like a gunshot. I tried to keep my distance, but then I heard it. A noise that wasn't his and wasn't mine. Heavy, deliberate, like something pacing us. My brother froze. He didn't look back at me. Didn't even acknowledge that he knew I was there. He just tilted his head, listening, and then he smiled. Not a happy smile. A knowing smile. Do you hear it? He whispered. My mouth went dry. I wanted to say no, but I couldn't. I couldn't even swallow. The sound was still there, just beyond the tree line. A presence you couldn't see but could feel pressing against your skin. Then my brother raised his hand, slowly, deliberately, like a signal, and the sound stopped. I ran. I didn't mean to. My legs just gave out, and the next thing I knew I was back in the town, coughing up fog, heart slamming in my chest. My brother came back hours later, calm, almost serene. His hands were shaking, but his eyes burned with something I'd never seen before. After that night, I started noticing changes. His notebook filled faster, pages covered in frantic writing, sketches of shapes half hidden in trees. He mapped the town, circled places, added times and dates like he was tracking something. I glimpsed the drawings once when he wasn't looking. They weren't of monsters. They were of people. Men, women, children, our neighbors. But their faces were twisted, their eyes hollow. When I confronted him, he didn't even flinch. "What are you doing?" I demanded. "What are you chasing out there?" He closed the notebook carefully, like it was fragile. His gaze locked on mine, steady, unblinking. "You wouldn't believe me. Try me," I said. For a long time, he said nothing. Then he leaned closer, voice low, almost reverent. "It's not a creature. It never was. It's us," I laughed, sharp, nervous. "That doesn't make sense." "It doesn't have to," he said. "You'll see." And then he went back to writing, just like that, as if he hadn't just split my world in half. After that, I started watching him closer. He'd stand at the edge of the forest for hours, staring into the trees like he was waiting for something to come out. Sometimes he'd murmur words under his breath. I couldn't make them out, but they didn't sound like prayers. They sounded like bargains. I joined him once against my better judgment. He didn't acknowledge me. He just stood there, notebook in hand, eyes fixed on the fog. And then, I swear to you, I saw something move. A shadow, tall and thin, slipping between the trees. My brother scribbled furiously, tears streaking his face. I wanted to run, but my legs locked. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the shadow was gone. "What was that?" I whispered. He didn't look at me. "It's listening," he said. I didn't ask who it was. I didn't want to know. The last night I saw him alive, or thought I did. He didn't come home. I waited until dawn, then searched. I found his notebook on the table, open to a sketch that made my stomach twist. It was a figure standing at the edge of town, and it looked exactly like me. I ran through the streets, through abandoned houses, down to the creek. That's where I found it. His jacket, torn and soaked, snagged on branches. Blood smeared across the rocks. And in the shallows, something that looked like a body. I rushed forward, but when I touched it, it wasn't a body at all. Just mud and fabric collapsing in my hands. The water rippled, like something had just slipped beneath the surface. I screamed his name until my throat broke. Nothing answered. When I stumbled back into town, I was shaking so badly I couldn't stand. I kept hearing his voice in my head. It's us. It's us. Was he warning me? Accusing me? The nights after that blurred together. I swear I heard him pacing outside the house. Once I saw his face in a window across the street, pale and watching. But when I ran over, the house was empty. Dust thick on the floorboards. His notebook haunted me. The last page was a single sentence, scrawled so hard the paper nearly tore. It chose him, not me. What did that mean? That I'd been spared? That I'd been claimed? Or that he was trying to shift the blame onto me? I don't know, and maybe I never will. Because sometimes when the night is still and the fog curls just right, I hear him. Not in memory, not in dreams. Outside. Breathing. Calling my name in a voice that sounds almost, but not quite, human. And I don't know if that means my brother is still out there, or if I've become what he feared all along. You've been waiting for the truth. That's what everyone says they want, but I don't think you'll like it. Truth isn't clean. It's jagged, ugly, and it cuts deeper the longer you hold on to it. But since you've stayed with me this far, I'll give you what I can. The first thing you need to understand is this. The town didn't vanish because of a monster. That's the story people tell, because it's easier than the alternative. It's easier to picture a hulking thing in the trees than to face what was really happening inside their own walls. One night, a group of men dragged him from our house. I fought them. I begged. But they didn't listen. They said it was justice. They said it was survival. I followed as they took him to the trees. They tied him to a post, left him there as bait, said if the Nantinak was real, it would come for him. If it wasn't, he'd survive until morning. I didn't sleep that night. I listened to his screams. Short, sharp, cut off too fast. In the morning, the post was empty. Just torn rope and blood in the snow. That's one truth. But here's another. Maybe there were no men. Maybe I was the one who dragged him there. Maybe all those screams came from my own throat, echoing back at me. Do you see the problem? I can't trust my own memories anymore. And neither should you. What I do know is this. After my brother was gone, the killings didn't stop. If anything, they grew worse. Bodies, or what was left of them, found near the cannery, near the creek. Some torn open, some bludgeoned. Everyone whispered it was the monster. But when I looked at those scenes, I saw something else. Footprints. Not giant, not deformed. Human. Boots like mine. I tried to tell myself they weren't mine, that I was imagining it, but I'd wake some mornings with mud on my boots, blood crusted beneath my nails. Once I woke holding my brother's notebook, though I swore I'd bath after my brother disappeared. Portlock changed. The emptiness grew heavier, like the houses themselves were grieving. I'd walk down the main street and feel eyes on me, though every window was dark. At night, I swore I heard people moving through the homes, the creak of floorboards, the scrape of chairs. Once, I saw candlelight flicker in the Rasmussen house. When I went in, it was cold, empty, dust settling thick, but the candle stub was still warm. That's when I realized the town hadn't emptied at all. Not really. It was like the people had sunk beneath the surface, shadows of themselves, lingering in places where they used to breathe. Or maybe I was just losing my mind. I tried to leave once, packed a bag, headed to the docks. The boats bobbed in the tide, ropes straining. But when I untied one, I saw something in the water. At first, I thought it was driftwood. Then it rolled, and I saw an eye, open, cloudy, staring straight at me. My brother's eye. I dropped the rope. The boat drifted away, and I never tried again. You want to know what really happened? Fine. Here's one version. After the Rasmussens vanished, after the disappearances multiplied, the town turned on itself. Whispers of curses, witchcraft, deals made in the forest. People began accusing one another, pointing fingers. And when they looked for someone to blame, their eyes always landed on us. Two brothers, outsiders even in our own home. My brother didn't help matters with his notebooks, his long nights, his wild-eyed mutterings. They said he was calling the thing to us, that he'd brought it here, runned it the night before. The last page still read the same. It chose him, not me. Only now, the handwriting looked like mine. Was the Nantinak real? Maybe. Or maybe it was just a name we gave to the violence inside us. The violence no one wanted to admit. A mask we could point at so we didn't have to look in the mirror. The town broke under the weight of that mask. Families fled in silence, leaving meals unfinished, doors unlocked, lives abandoned. They didn't run from a creature. They ran from each other, from me, from what I might have done. Do you see it now? The truth isn't that Portlock was abandoned because of a beast in the woods. The truth is that Portlock rotted from the inside out, and I was the infection. Sometimes I still hear them, the families, the children, my brother, moving through the houses at night. Their voices rise with the tide, whispering my name, accusing, begging. Or maybe it's just the wind. Maybe I'm the only voice left here. But here's the part you really need to understand. I never left Portlock. I'm still here. The world likes to tell the story as if everyone vanished overnight. That's not true. I stayed. I stayed because someone had to bear the truth. Someone had to carry the weight. And now you've listened. You've carried it with me. Maybe that's why I told you this. Because once you know the truth of Portlock, it doesn't stay with me alone. It spreads. It chooses. So if you ever feel the fog rolling in too thick, if you hear footsteps matching your own when you're walking alone, don't look back. Don't stop. Because the Nantinak didn't chase them out. I did. And now, maybe it's chosen you. Story number 3. If I tell you what really happened in the Alaska Triangle, you'll call me a liar. But if I don't, then I'm the only one left who remembers the truth. And maybe that's the worst part, because sometimes I'm not sure I remember it right myself. You're not going to believe me when I tell you this. Honestly, some days I don't even believe myself. But that's the problem, isn't it? Memory is fragile out here. It freezes, cracks, and then pieces of it just vanish, the same way people do in the Alaska Triangle. I should probably start with the map. That map, the one I swear shouldn't exist. See, I'd been fascinated with the Alaska Triangle for years. Those endless reports of hikers, pilots, and hunters vanishing without a trace. People chalk it up to weather, rough terrain, or animals. But deep down, I always felt like there was something else. Something no one wanted to admit. I wasn't looking for answers at first, not really. More like confirmation, proof that my fear wasn't just paranoia. And then the map appeared. It wasn't mailed, not emailed, not slipped under my door. No, I just found it one morning, spread across my kitchen table like someone had been studying it overnight. Black ink on yellowing parchment, edges frayed as though it had passed through 100 different hands before mine. I don't remember putting it there, and yet I recognize my handwriting labeling certain points, my own crooked letters unmistakable. I never drew that map, at least not that I remember. That was the first time I said it out loud. The cold makes you forget things. That's what I told myself then, and what I'm telling you now. But if I really had forgotten, why did the map feel warm when I touched it? I told myself I was alone when I left to follow it. That's the truth. At least the truth I'm comfortable giving you. But the thing is, sometimes when I think back, I see 2 sets of boots by the door. I hear another voice arguing with mine about whether this was a good idea. And there are flashes. Someone laughing beside me as we trudged through the snow. Someone humming nervously at night. But every time I try to picture their face, it just disappears. So was I alone? Or was I with someone I've already lost? I won't answer that. Not yet. The wilderness was brutal, like walking across an endless sheet of paper, blank and unforgiving. The trees bent in strange ways, like they were pointing me forward, or maybe warning me to turn back. I remember pulling the map from my coat pocket every few minutes, just to be sure I was still on course. Here's where it gets confusing. On the second day, I noticed footprints ahead of me. 2 sets, fresh, pressed deep into the snow. My stomach twisted. I thought maybe we weren't the only ones out here, that someone else had the same map. But when I looked down again, there was only 1 set, mine. I told myself the snow must have covered the other pair, or maybe I'd imagined them. That night, I built a fire and huddled close, clutching the map against my chest. The flames should have warmed me, but I swear the paper pulsed like it was breathing, almost alive, as if it was stealing my heat. I wanted to toss it into the fire, but instead I kept staring, tracing the lines with numb fingers. That's when I heard the voices, soft, hushed like whispers carried by the wind. They didn't sound threatening, not exactly. More like murmurs of people who had been walking behind me all day, waiting for me to notice. I know what you're thinking. Maybe it was just the wind whistling through the trees. I told myself the same thing, except one of the voices said my name, clear as anything. Now here's the part I can't explain. I woke up the next morning, fire cold, map still clutched in my hand. And when I looked at the snow around me, I saw a circle of footprints, hundreds of them. Like people had gathered around me in the night, watching as I slept. My breath caught in my throat, but when I blinked, they were gone. The snow lay smooth and untouched, like it had never been disturbed. Was I dreaming? Was I losing my mind? I don't know, but I do know this. The map kept leading me deeper, always pointing towards something just beyond the horizon. Every ridge I climbed, every frozen river I crossed, it felt like I was on the edge of discovery and disaster. By the 4th day, I couldn't shake the feeling of being followed. Shadows moved at the corner of my eyes. I swore I saw a figure trailing me from a distance, wrapped in heavy furs, face obscured. Once or twice, I even raised my hand to wave, but they never waved back. Maybe they weren't real, or maybe they were waiting for me to falter. And here's the strange thing. Sometimes I'd talk out loud, as if to that partner I may or may not have had. I'd say things like, "We're close now," or "Don't worry, we'll make it." And in those moments, I'd hear a faint reply, a laugh, a sigh, a sharp intake of breath, always fleeting, like echoes bouncing off the mountains. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand. I wasn't lying when I said I was alone, but I wasn't lying either when I said there might have been someone with me. Out here, truth freezes, fractures, becomes something else entirely. On the 7th night, exhausted, starving, I spread the map out on the snow to check my bearings. My lantern flickered, casting shadows across the lines. And I swear, the ink shifted beneath my eyes. Roads bent, symbols twisted. The path rerouted itself while I watched. That's when it happened. The paper rose, just slightly, as if air was trapped beneath it. Then it pulsed. Once, twice, like the slow, steady rhythm of a heartbeat. My hand trembled as I touched it, and I could feel the thrum beneath my palm, warm and alive. I pulled back instantly, heart racing. Snow stung my face, but all I could think about was that impossible movement, that map breathing like a creature in my hands. I should have burned it. God help me, I should have, but instead, I folded it neatly, tucked it back into my pocket, and kept walking. because something out there wanted me to, and whatever it was, I think it had already been waiting for me. You ever get the feeling that the wilderness is building something around you? Like the trees are leaning in closer every day, whispering, plotting. That's how it felt after the map started breathing. I didn't tell you this before, but I didn't stop walking because I wanted to. I stopped because the map told me to. It's funny, paper shouldn't have a voice. It shouldn't guide you. But the way the ink twisted and curled, the way the lines pulsed beneath my thumb, I swear I could hear it, directing me. And every time I thought about turning back, my chest tightened, like the air itself was punishing me for the thought. By the 8th day, frost had crept into my eyelashes, my skin cracked, my lips bled. The landscape hadn't changed for hours. White plains, black trees, distant mountains swallowing the sky. I thought I was hallucinating when I saw it at first. A faint orange glow flickering between the trees. A cabin. Isolated, sagging under the weight of snow. Yet impossibly warm light glowed from its windows. No chimney smoke, no footprints leading in or out. Just there, waiting. I told myself it was shelter, that I needed it. But deep down, I knew better. Things don't survive out here without reason. I pushed open the door, and for a moment, I thought the place was abandoned. Dust clinging to warped furniture, walls scarred with knife marks, shelves lined with cracked jars. But then, my lantern caught the corner of the table. That's when my stomach lurched. Journals, stacks of them, piled high, bound in leather and string. Dozens, maybe hundreds. I reached for one. The cover was warped, the pages yellowed, but the handwriting, it was mine. The same slanted scrawl that labelled the map, the same loops in the letters, the same uneven spacing. Every word was mine. I flipped through the pages, desperate, horrified. The entries stretched back years, decades even. Descriptions of hikes I'd never taken, people I'd never met. Yet every sentence dripped with my voice, my memory. And then one detail made me freeze, an entry about this very night. The ink still wet, the words still sinking into the page. Tonight, I arrive at the cabin. I find the journals. I realize I've been here before. The lantern slipped in my hand. My breath came fast, sharp, fogging the air. I told myself it was impossible. Some trick, some sick prank. But when I turned to the next page, my blood turned to ice. Tomorrow, I'll hear her voice again. The one I lost in the snow. She'll remind me what I did, and I won't be able to lie anymore. Her voice. I didn't want to think about what that meant. But the air in the cabin thickened, pressing against me. And then, like the journals had summoned it, I heard it. A voice, soft, strained, coming from the far corner of the room. Why did you leave me? I dropped the book. It landed open on the floor, pages bending, words glaring up at me. I spun toward the corner, but there was nothing there, only the sagging walls, the frost seeping through the wood. Still, the voice came again, closer now, threaded with pain. You promised you wouldn't let go. I staggered back, gripping the table until my knuckles turned white. My head pounded, my chest squeezed. I wanted to scream, but what came out instead was a whisper, pathetic, broken. I didn't. I swear I didn't. And I don't know if I was speaking to the ghost or to myself. That night, I sat by the lantern, clutching one of the journals. The shadows on the walls stretched and shifted, moving like figures pacing, circling. Every time I blinked, I thought I saw someone sitting across from me at the table. A silhouette, hunched, face hidden. Once, I even spoke to it. I said, "We'll get through this. We'll make it." And for a second, I heard laughter. Her laughter, familiar, fragile, just the way I remembered it. But then the echo twisted, fractured, became a scream that tore through the cabin until I clamped my hands over my ears. I wanted to run, to throw the journals into the snow and never look back. But when I reached the door, my fingers froze on the handle, because pressed into the wood, carved deep into the grain, was my name. Over and over, scratched in desperation, 100 times, 1,000. And below it, 3 words that made my stomach drop. I killed her. The walls seemed to close in. The whispers grew louder. I stumbled back, tripping over the journals scattered across the floor. Pages fluttered open, words bleeding through the paper like fresh ink. Some entries didn't sound like me at all. They sounded angry. They accused me. They described a body buried in ice, hands clawing against the snow, begging for help. And then there were entries where I confessed it all, cold, calm, almost proud. I slammed the book shut, heart hammering. None of it was true. It couldn't be true, could it? The voices didn't stop that night. They slipped between waking and sleep, whispering from the corners of the room, filling the silence with accusations. Sometimes they sounded like her, sometimes like strangers, and sometimes they sounded like me. By morning, the cabin was different. I don't mean rearranged, I mean older, the wood darker, the air thicker, as though years had passed overnight. And when I looked again at the shelves, the journals had multiplied, stacks upon stacks reaching the ceiling. I grabbed the map, desperate, clutching it against my chest. It pulsed, once, twice, stronger this time, almost eager, and I knew I had to keep moving. But before I left, I glanced back, just once. And I swear, in the corner by the table, I saw her. Pale, hair matted with frost, eyes hollow. She sat hunched, lips moving soundlessly, whispering words I couldn't hear. For a heartbeat, I almost stayed, almost reached for her hand. But then she lifted her head and her face wasn't hers at all. It was mine. I slammed the door shut, snow crunching beneath my boots as I stumbled into the cold. The cabin's glow faded behind me, swallowed by the wilderness, until it was as if it had never existed. Still, I felt the whispers clinging to my ears, the words carved into the wood branded into my mind. I killed her. No, that wasn't true. It couldn't be. I told myself the cold was making me forget, that the triangle was playing tricks, rewriting memories, that the map was pulling me towards something bigger, something that would explain everything. But deep down, I knew the truth. You don't find cabins like that by accident. You don't stumble onto journals written in your own hand unless you've been here before. And you don't keep hearing a voice unless you left someone behind. The map pulsed again in my pocket, and I started walking, snow biting at my skin. I didn't know where it was taking me. I just knew I had no choice. Because in the Alaska Triangle, you don't choose the path chooses you. You remember how I told you the map was alive, that it pulsed like a heart in my hands? Well, I should have burned it right there, but I didn't. I couldn't. Something about it tugged at me, like a leash wrapped tight around my ribs, pulling me forward whether I wanted it or not. That's how I ended up at the cabin. I didn't see it at first. It was just a faint glow between the trees, orange and steady. The kind of light your mind plays tricks with when you've been staring at endless white for too long. But the closer I got, the stronger it became. A cabin, I thought. Shelter, safety, except nothing in the Alaska Triangle is safe. Not really. The place sagged beneath the weight of snow. Its roof bowed like an old man's back. No chimney smoke, no footprints leading in or out. Just standing there, alone, like it had been waiting for me all along. When I pushed the door open, the smell hit me first. Damp wood, frozen earth, and something faintly metallic. Inside, the air was thick with dust, motes swirling in my lantern light. Furniture sat abandoned, warped and cracked. But then I saw the table. That's where everything changed. Journals. Dozens of them, stacked high, their leather bindings cracked and flaking. My breath fogged as I reached out, hands trembling. The first book opened with a groan of stiff paper, and there it was, the handwriting. Mine. Same jagged curves, same impatient slant. My words, but the entries dated back years. Longer than I've even been alive. I remember whispering, "No, no, this isn't real." But the pages didn't care. They kept unfolding beneath my fingers, spilling out stories that weren't mine but felt like mine. Accounts of journeys into the triangle, of people who vanished, of someone always left behind. And then I found it. An entry written in ink so fresh, it smudged beneath my thumb. Tonight, I arrive at the cabin. I find the journals. I realize I've been here before. I nearly dropped the lantern. My pulse thundered in my ears. I flipped to the next page and my stomach turned cold. Tomorrow I'll hear her voice again. The one I lost in the snow. She'll remind me what I did, and I won't be able to lie anymore. Her voice. The lantern flickered. The walls groaned, and then I heard it. Soft, ragged, carried from the shadows. "Why did you leave me?" I spun, light slicing across the empty cabin. Nothing there, no one. Just frost creeping through the wood. But then it came again, closer this time. "You promised you wouldn't let go." My throat tightened. My vision blurred. I wanted to scream, to deny it, but what came out was a whisper. I didn't. I swear I didn't. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I was speaking to whatever haunted this cabin, or to myself. I sat frozen for hours, back against the wall, journals spread across my lap. The shadows stretched and shifted, sometimes forming shapes that looked like people. Once, I swear I saw someone seated across the table from me, head bowed, fingers drumming lightly as if waiting for me to speak. I did speak. I said, "We'll make it out, together." And for a heartbeat, I heard it. The laugh. Soft. Familiar. Her laugh. But then it broke into a shriek so piercing I dropped the lantern. The flame guttered. Shadows exploded, and for a split second I thought I saw her. Kneeling in the corner, hair stiff with frost, eyes hollow, lips moving soundlessly. I scrambled for the lantern, breath ragged. When the flame steadied again, she was gone. Or maybe she hadn't been there at all. I thought leaving would be simple. I thought I could just grab the map and run. But when I reached for the door, my hand froze. Not from the cold. No, something else held me there. My light caught the wood. Carved into the door, deep and desperate, was my name. Again and again, hundreds of times, overlapping, gouged into the grain. And beneath them, 3 words that made my blood stop. I killed her. I stumbled back, heart hammering. "No," I whispered. "That's not true. That's not true." The journals answered. Their pages fluttered, though no wind moved. Words bled through the paper, fresh and wet, crawling across the floor toward me. They told stories of a body buried beneath ice, of fingers clawing for air, of someone begging me not to let go. My stomach heaved. I wanted to scream, to tear the pages apart. But the more I read, the more I recognized the voice. My voice. Was it confession or accusation? I don't know. The voices didn't stop. All night they circled me, weaving in and out of my ears. Sometimes her, sometimes strangers, sometimes my own tongue mocking me. They slipped between waking and sleep until I couldn't tell which was which. By morning, the cabin had changed. The walls darker, the air heavier, and the shelves that once held a few dozen journals now reached the ceiling, sagging under hundreds, maybe thousands of books, each one bearing my handwriting, each one whispering my guilt. I grabbed the map, clutching it tight. It pulsed harder now, as though pleased. I told myself to leave, to get out before the voices consumed me. But when I turned for the door, I glanced back. Just once, and I saw her, sitting at the table, head bowed, lips still moving. She looked up, eyes pale and bottomless. Her face, God, her face, it wasn't hers anymore. It was mine. I bolted, snow crunching underfoot, the cabin's glow vanishing behind me as though swallowed whole by the wilderness. Still, I heard the whispers chasing me into the trees. I killed her. I killed her. No, I gasped, stumbling forward, the map burning against my chest. That's not true. That's not true. But maybe it was. Maybe I just didn't want to remember. The triangle does that to you. It freezes your memories, breaks them apart, rearranges them until you don't know what you've lost and what you've done. And yet, deep down, I knew the truth. You don't find cabins like that by accident. You don't stumble into journals in your own hand unless you've been there before, and you don't keep hearing a voice unless someone was left behind. The map pulsed again, almost urgently, dragging me forward into the wilderness. I didn't know what was waiting. All I knew was that whatever lived in that cabin wasn't done with me. Not yet. You're probably expecting answers by now. A clean ending. Some explanation that ties all of this together. But that's the problem with the Alaska Triangle. There are no clean endings, just disappearances, just gaps where people used to be. And maybe by the time you finish listening to this, there'll be a gap where I used to be too. I told you about the cabin, the journals, the voice. I told you about the words carved into the door. I killed her. But what I didn't tell you was what happened when I left. The snow was heavier that morning, the wind sharp enough to peel skin. I staggered forward, clutching the map against my chest. It pulsed harder than ever, each beat sinking with mine until I couldn't tell which heart belonged to me anymore. Every step felt guided, forced. The path wasn't mine. I was just being dragged along it, and then the dream started. I'd walk for hours, only to blink and find myself standing still, surrounded by shadows that looked like people. Sometimes I saw her walking ahead of me, her figure blurred by the storm. Sometimes she walked beside me, head tilted, whispering words I couldn't quite hear. And sometimes she trailed behind. That was the worst part, because I could feel her eyes on me, heavy, accusing. I wanted to scream, "Tell me what you want. Tell me what I did." But the words froze on my tongue. On the 10th day, I collapsed, face first in the snow, lungs burning, body shaking. I remember thinking, this is it. This is how I vanish like the others. But when I opened my eyes, I wasn't in the snow anymore. I was back in the cabin. The journals towered higher, the shadows darker, and across the table sat someone waiting for me. Me, or something that looked like me. It smiled with my mouth, tilted its head with my gestures, tapped its fingers against the wood exactly the way I do when I'm anxious. "You knew this was coming," it said. My voice but colder. "You've always known." I wanted to argue, to deny, but the words didn't come. Because deep down, maybe I had always known. The figure leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Do you want me to tell you how it happened? Do you want me to remind you?" "No," I whispered. "Please, don't." But it told me anyway. It spoke of the night she slipped, the ice cracking, her hands clawing for mine, her voice begging me not to let go. It spoke of how heavy the cold was, how tired I'd been, how easy it was to loosen my grip, and how quiet the world became when she sank beneath the snow. I slammed my hands over my ears, screaming, "Lies! You're lying!" But when I looked down, my gloves were wet. Not with snow, with blood. The journals scattered across the floor began to open themselves, pages fluttering, voices rising. A chorus of me's, all confessing the same thing. I killed her. I killed her. I killed her. I don't remember leaving the cabin again. I only remember the cold swallowing me whole and the map burning hot against my chest, pulling me towards something I couldn't see. When I came to, I was standing at the edge of a vast frozen lake. The surface shimmered under the moonlight, smooth and glassy, and beneath the ice, her face, eyes wide, mouth open, hands pressed against the underside as if she'd been frozen mid-scream. I dropped to my knees, pounding against the ice until my fists split, until my blood smeared across the surface. "I didn't let go," I cried. "I swear I didn't let go," but the eyes beneath the ice never blinked. The map pulsed again, and I looked down. The ink had shifted, no longer a path, just a circle, a trap, and right at the center, in sharp black strokes, was a single word, me. I don't know how long I knelt there. Hours, days. Time doesn't mean anything out here. All I know is the ice began to crack, first in tiny lines, then in jagged webs spreading out beneath me. I thought it would break, that I'd plunge into the freezing black and join her. Part of me wanted that. Part of me thought I deserved it. But the ice never broke. Instead, the cracks formed letters, words. "You're next." That's when I realized the triangle doesn't just take people, it makes them vanish by turning them into something else. Stories, whispers, shadows, confessions, scrawled in journals no one should be able to write. Maybe I never had a partner. Maybe I never lost anyone. Maybe I'm the one who was lost all along. But if that's true, who's been telling you this story? Because here's the part that keeps me awake, even now. I don't remember recording this. I don't remember pressing play or setting up the camera or speaking into the dark. So maybe this isn't a confession. Maybe it's a warning. If you're hearing my voice, then the triangle has already chosen you. The map doesn't appear for just anyone. It finds the ones who are curious enough, desperate enough, guilty enough. And once you've heard the story, you're already on the path. So don't bother telling yourself you'll stay away, that you won't go looking for it. The triangle doesn't need you to go there. It comes to you, in the corner of your eye, in the silence between breaths, in the missing pieces of your memory when you wake up. That's how it starts. And one day soon, you'll find a map spread across your table. You'll swear you never drew it, but the handwriting will look just like yours. And by then, it'll be too late, because the Alaska Triangle doesn't let anyone go. Not her, not me, not you. Story number 4. You ever hear a man laugh underwater? No, I don't mean bubbles or choking. I mean a laugh. A human laugh, echoing through the waves. I heard it, and I think that's when I stopped being myself. You ever hear a man laugh under the ice? I'm not talking about muffled shouts or some echo carried wrong through the wind. I mean a laugh. Clear, sharp, human. Like it came from beneath my boots as I stood on a frozen river. I heard it. I swear I heard it. And maybe that's the night everything started breaking apart for me. Or maybe it started before, and I just didn't notice. I came to Alaska for work, not for stories. People romanticize the wilderness like it's some clean slate, untouched by the rest of the world. But let me tell you, it doesn't feel untouched when you're out there. It feels hostile, like something old and watching, waiting for you to slip up. I signed on for a seasonal job. Simple enough. Help with the fishing camp, clear trails, keep gear in shape. I wasn't chasing adventure. I wasn't even chasing money. I was just running from something else. I won't get into that yet. It's not important. Or maybe it is. But not in the way you think. The camp was about 20 miles from the nearest village, tucked against the river's bend where the ice ran thickest in winter. There were only a handful of us, rotating shifts, and the one I got closest to, if you can call it that, was Daniel. He was one of those people who acted like he'd already seen everything worth seeing, like nothing could scare him. He was from somewhere down south, I think Texas. Talked too loud, laughed too hard, always had a cigarette he shouldn't have had that far out from supply. Daniel didn't believe in anything. Ghosts, curses, local stories. He thought all of it was a joke. And the locals told plenty of stories. They'd lower their voices and tell us about the Kushtaka, these half-man, half-otter creatures that lived by the rivers, shapeshifters, tricksters. They'd lure travelers with the sound of a friend's voice, or a baby crying, or laughter. They'd lead you straight into the water, and you'd never come back. Sometimes they said, you didn't die. Sometimes you became one of them. I listened. I mean, how could you not? The way the old men's eyes darted to the river as they talked. The way their hands shook like the memory of it was too close. I listened, but Daniel, he laughed. He'd imitate them after, making these dumb otter noises, splashing water with his hands. He called them river clowns. Said if he ever met one, he'd teach it how to play poker. I should have hated him for it, but I didn't. Maybe because part of me needed his kind of confidence, that brash certainty that nothing out here was real except the cold and the work. I wanted to believe him, but then came that night. It was colder than usual, the kind of cold where your breath just hangs, frozen, like even the air doesn't want to move. Daniel and I had been checking traps down by the river, and the moon was so bright it painted the snow silver. You could see for miles, but everything was dead quiet. Too quiet. Even Daniel stopped talking, which was rare. We walked out onto the ice to test its thickness, and that's when I heard it, a laugh. It didn't come from Daniel. He was right beside me, jaw tight, eyes searching the dark. It didn't come from the woods either. It came from below us, from beneath the ice. Imagine that for a second. You're standing on a frozen river, the kind where the ice could be 12 inches thick, solid as stone, and under your boots, clear as day, a laugh rises up. A man's laugh. Daniel looked at me, his face pale, and for once he didn't have a joke ready. I whispered, "Did you hear that?" He shook his head fast, too fast. "It's the ice cracking," he said. But the ice didn't crack. It didn't move. It just echoed. I leaned down, pressing my ear close, and swear to God, I heard words then. Just fragments, just tones, but enough to make the hair on my arm stand straight. It sounded like my name. I know how that sounds, but it was my name. Daniel pulled me back, hard. He told me to quit messing around, that we needed to get back. But he wouldn't look me in the eye. Not once. We trudged back in silence, and that was the last full conversation I remember having with him. Now, this is where things get blurry, because when I talk about what happened after, people think I'm mixing it up, remembering wrong, and maybe I am. Maybe I'm telling it wrong now. Here's what I know. I went to sleep that night, but I don't remember Daniel coming in. In the morning, his bunk was empty. His gear was gone. Some people think he packed up and left early. That's what I told myself at first. He got bored, decided the job wasn't worth it, hiked out before the snow got worse. Makes sense, right? Except nobody hikes out without telling someone, and Daniel wasn't quiet. He wasn't the type to leave without rubbing it in your face. I asked the others, but no one had seen him. They thought he'd gone off to smoke or hunt. A day passed, then two. No Daniel. The river kept groaning in the night, and I kept hearing that laugh, faint, stretched thin, like it travelled through miles of ice just to reach me. Here's the part I don't talk about often. The morning after he vanished, I walked back down to the river. The snow was untouched, except for a single line of prints leading straight to the water. Not away, just to. And at the edge, where the ice turned dark, there were drag marks, like something had been pulled under. I told myself it was an animal. Maybe he slipped, maybe a bear had come early. But the prints, they looked like his boots. I swear they did. I didn't tell the others. I should have. But I didn't. Because when I turned to head back, I froze. Someone was standing across the river, still silent, half shrouded in mist. My heart jumped because it was Daniel. Same jacket, same messy hair, same stupid grin. He raised his hand like he was about to wave, but something in the way he stood was wrong. Too stiff, too perfect, like a picture instead of a man. And then, this part I know I didn't imagine, he bent down, pressed a hand against the ice and laughed. That's when I ran. I didn't stop, didn't look back until I was inside, door slammed, lungs burning. I tried to tell myself it was just my head playing tricks, but then why did I find his lighter in my pocket later that night? I don't smoke. I never did. So when people ask me about Daniel, I don't know what to say anymore. Sometimes I tell them he left early. Sometimes I say he drowned. Sometimes I don't say anything at all. Because the truth is, I don't know which version is real. All I know is the river hasn't stopped laughing since. And if you're wondering whether that thing I saw was really Daniel, or just something wearing his face, well, I can only tell you this. The next morning, when the sun finally broke the horizon, Daniel was still there, standing on the ice, waiting for me. I didn't sleep the night I saw him standing there. How could I? Every time I shut my eyes, I pictured Daniel on the ice, grinning too wide, his hand pressed against the frozen river like he was listening to it breathe. I'd jolt awake, drenched in sweat, certain I'd hear him outside the cabin door, but the only sound was the river itself, groaning, shifting, as if something beneath it wanted out. By morning, I told myself it had to be exhaustion, maybe even guilt. I mean, I was the last one to see him, right? Maybe I'd let him walk off. Maybe I hadn't stopped him when I should have. That thought gnawed at me worse than the cold. But then I saw him again. It was the middle of the day, sun pale and low, shadows stretched thin across the snow. I was hauling wood, and there he was, Daniel, clear as life, standing by the tree line. Same jacket, same hair, but his face, it was hard to explain. It didn't look wrong exactly, it just didn't look alive. Like all the colour had drained out of him. Like he was wearing his own skin instead of living in it. He didn't move, didn't blink, just watched me until I dropped the wood and staggered back. When I turned to call someone over, he was gone. That was the start of it. I began seeing him everywhere. At night, outside the cabin windows. At dawn, by the river's edge. Once, I swear I saw him in the bunk across from mine, lying still, breathing slow, until I blinked and the sheets were empty again. And the worst part? Sometimes he looked alive, sometimes drowned. And once, God help me, once he looked like me. I tried to tell the others. They didn't believe me, said stress was getting to me, said the isolation messes with your head. But then I found someone who did believe, or pretended to. The locals came by once a week, bringing supplies, checking traps. That day, an older woman came with them, someone I hadn't seen before. She was bundled in furs, eyes sharp as broken glass. Her name was Anna. She didn't waste time on small talk, just stared at me until I squirmed. And then she said, quiet but certain, "You heard them, didn't you?" The laughter. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. She knew. The others laughed it off, said she was just trying to scare me. But when no one was looking, she pulled me aside. Her voice was low, urgent. If you heard Daniel laugh beneath the ice, then Daniel is already gone. What you see now isn't him. Don't follow it. Don't listen, not even if it calls your name. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that I'd imagined it, but deep down, I knew she wasn't. Still, I asked, what if it's really him? What if he's alive? Her eyes softened, but not kindly, more like pity. That's how they get you. That night, I heard it again. The laughter, but not muffled, not far, close, just outside the cabin wall. And this time, it wasn't just laughter. It was Daniel's voice. Hey buddy, come on out. I need your help. I froze, heart pounding. It was him, exactly him. The cadence, the words he'd use. He sounded annoyed, like he always did when I moved too slow. I almost opened the door. Almost. But Anana's warning clawed at me. Not even if it calls your name. I stayed put, hands shaking, staring at the door until the voice faded. In the morning, I found footprints in the snow. Daniel's boots, leading away from the cabin toward the river. Now, here's where things get murky. I don't know how much of what I remember is real and how much my mind filled in after, because I followed those prints. I told myself I just needed to know, needed proof. The tracks led straight to the riverbank, and there, across the water, stood two figures. My blood went cold because I recognized them both. One was Daniel, grinning, waving me over, and the other was me, I swear on everything I have left. That figure looked exactly like me. Same coat, same hat, same crooked scar on my chin. And it was smiling. Not like me, not my tired half smile, but something sharper, hungrier. They stood side by side, watching me. And then, this part I can't shake, they spoke in unison. Come closer. I staggered back, fell to my knees. The ice groaned beneath me. The sound so deep it rattled my ribs. I thought I'd fall through, thought they'd drag me under. But the ice held, and when I looked again, they were gone. Just empty river. Just silence. I should have turned back then. Should have packed my things, left the camp, walked until my legs gave out. But I didn't. Because when I looked down, I saw wet prints leading away from the river. Human footprints, glistening as if someone had just climbed out. And that's when the blackout started. The first one hit that same night. I remember sitting by the fire, staring at Daniel's lighter in my hand. I blinked, and suddenly I was outside, standing knee-deep in snow, fingers numb, lips raw from the cold. I don't know how long I'd been out there. My boots were soaked through, my nails broken, like I'd been clawing at something. When I stumbled back inside, the others stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had, but I couldn't tell them the truth. Couldn't say I'd followed laughter into the dark. So I said nothing. The blackouts kept coming. Each one longer, each one worse. I'd wake up drenched, reeking of river water with no memory of leaving. Once I woke with fish bones in my hands. Another time with cuts along my arms I couldn't explain. I told myself it was sleepwalking. Stress. Anything but what it really felt like. Because deep down, I think I knew. The Kushtaka weren't just after me. They were already inside me. And the last blackout, I still don't know if I came back from that one. You want the truth? I don't know if I'm still me. I keep replaying everything in my head, trying to separate what happened from what I imagined. But the lines don't hold anymore. They blur, bleed into each other like water seeping through cracks. I tell myself I'm the same man who came out here to work, to earn a paycheck, to keep my head down. But sometimes, when I catch my reflection in the window at night, I don't recognize the face staring back. Sometimes it smiles before I do. The blackouts got worse. At first, I could pass them off. Long days, exhaustion. Maybe I was drinking more than I thought. But then they started stretching. Hours missing. Days. I'd wake up shivering, clothes drenched, boots caked in river silt. Once, I woke up by the shoreline, my fingers raw and bleeding, and there were drag marks leading into the water. I followed them with my eyes, and for the first time, I wondered if maybe I hadn't been the one pulled. I'd been the one pulling. I didn't tell anyone. How could I? What was I supposed to say? Hey guys, if Daniel's gone, maybe it's because I dragged him under the ice myself, except I don't remember doing it. They'd have locked me up, sent me south, written me off as crazy. Maybe they'd have been right. But here's the part that keeps me awake. When I dream in water, cold black water, endless and heavy. I dream of moving through it like it's air, lungs full, body light, faster than I could ever be on land. And always, always I hear that laugh. Sometimes Daniel's, sometimes mine, sometimes both. I started avoiding mirrors, windows, anything reflective, because one night I caught a glimpse, and the man looking back wasn't me. His eyes were too dark, his mouth too wide. He looked hungry. I smashed the glass, but the reflection lingered in the shards, grinning up at me long after I'd turned away. I told myself I could fight it, that if I stayed away from the river, maybe I'd hold on to whatever part of me was still human. But the river doesn't care about your plans. It calls you anyway. The sound of it gets inside you, a constant whisper beneath every other noise. And when it laughs, when it really laughs, you don't walk away. You follow. Anana came back once more before the snow cut us off. She found me by the fire, hands trembling, nails blackened with dirt. She didn't ask questions, just looked at me like she already knew. And then she said something I can't shake. It doesn't matter what you believe. Once they touch you, you're theirs. The only question is whether you'll fight until the end, or whether you'll welcome it. I wanted to fight. God, I wanted to. But every night, I'd wake up closer to the river, sometimes on the bank, sometimes standing on the ice itself, staring down into that dark water where shapes moved just out of sight. And once, I'm not proud of this, I woke up with a fish half-eaten in my hands, raw, scales stuck in my teeth. You can laugh if you want. Say I'm lying. Say I'm losing it. Maybe I am. But if I am, then tell me this. Why did the others start looking at me different? Why did they keep their distance? Whisper when they thought I couldn't hear? One of them swore he saw me out at the traps the same night I was sitting by the fire. Swore it on his life. Said I walked past him without a word, eyes glassy, dripping wet. And the worst part? I believed him. Because when I lay down that night, I was dry. But when I woke up, the blankets were soaked. It's hard to explain what it feels like. The in-between. Like you're stretched thin. One foot on solid ground, the other sinking beneath. Sometimes I feel human enough. Cold, hungry, scared. Other times, I feel something else entirely. Something that doesn't belong in this body. Something ancient and endless. The last time I saw Daniel, or what was left of him, wasn't at the river. It was in my bunk. I woke up to the sound of breathing beside me, turned my head, and there he was. Face pale, lips blue, eyes wide open. He grinned, and water spilled from his mouth onto the floorboards. I blinked, and the bunk was empty, but the water stayed. That's when I stopped pretending, stopped trying to keep the story straight. Whether I dragged him under, whether the kushtaka did, whether he ever existed at all, it doesn't matter. What matters is the river chose me next, and I think I let it. I don't remember the last blackout in full, just fragments, cold hands pulling me down, a voice, mine or Daniel's, whispering, "It's easier this way." The burn of ice in my lungs turning sweet, like air. When I woke, I was back in my bunk, dry, safe, the fire still burning low. But there were scratches on the door, long and deep, as if something had clawed its way out instead of in. Since then, I've stopped dreaming. Or maybe I only dream. It's hard to tell. The days blur, the nights blur, and sometimes when I speak, I hear an echo that doesn't match my voice. I don't know why I'm telling you all this. Maybe as a warning, maybe because the thing inside me wants me to. If you're watching this, if you're listening, don't trust me. Don't trust anything I've said. Maybe Daniel was never real. Maybe I was never real. Maybe I've been the Kushtaka's mouthpiece all along, luring you closer with a story dressed up as confession. All I know is this. When the river laughs, I laugh with it now, and if, after hearing me, you ever find yourself near running water and you hear a voice calling your name, don't go, don't follow, don't even listen, because if you do, the voice might sound like me. I'm not sure if I should be telling you this, but maybe that's the only way I'll sleep again. Because the trench, the one we were sent to explore, it isn't on any official maps. And the truth is, I think that's because someone already knew what was down there. That's where I'll start. Not with the contracts I signed, or the months of briefings, or the dry promises of scientific advancement. I'll start with the moment I realized we weren't on an ordinary expedition. I should probably explain who I am. Though, I'll keep some things vague. You can call me the biologist. My real name isn't important, and honestly, I don't want it tied to this story. I specialized in deep-sea ecosystems, microorganisms, the kind of life forms most people never think about. Things that live in complete darkness, things that shouldn't even be alive at all. When the funding came through for this mission, I thought it was the opportunity of a lifetime, a chance to map a trench so deep, so remote, that even satellite imaging couldn't capture its full dimensions. But here's what no one told us. The coordinates didn't exist in any public database. It was like the ocean itself was hiding a secret. The first time I saw the trench, my stomach turned. It wasn't like a canyon or a rift. It looked more like a wound, a scar in the Earth's crust, stretching further than our instruments could read. I told myself it was excitement I felt, but in truth, it was dread. Captain Elena noticed it too. She was the kind of woman who didn't rattle easily. Her voice always steady, her posture squared like she'd been born at sea. But when she looked at the sonar scans, her mouth tightened, and her hand gripped the rail just a little too long. "Biologist," she said. "Never my name. Always just biologist. You ever seen readings like that before?" I shook my head. "No, Captain. Nothing close." Her eyes narrowed. She didn't say what we were both thinking, that the readings didn't make sense. Depths where no seafloor should be. Shapes that shifted when the sonar swept back around, as if the ocean itself didn't want to be measured. I'm telling you this now, but I'll admit something. I'm not giving you the whole truth, not yet. There are parts I'll leave out, at least for now, because some details aren't safe. For you, or for me, if you knew everything at once, you'd never listen past the first few minutes. We set up the equipment slowly, carefully. Elena kept barking orders to the crew, but you should know, it wasn't a full ship. Just a skeleton team. That's another thing that bothered me. A trench like this should have warranted dozens of scientists, engineers, medics. Instead, we had less than 10 people, and half of them weren't even specialists. I asked Elena about it once, late at night, when most of the crew had turned in. She was leaning over the charts, a single bulb casting her face in sharp shadow. "They don't want too many witnesses," she muttered, almost like she hadn't meant for me to hear. When I asked her what that meant, she straightened, her expression hardening. "It means you should do your job, biologist, and leave the rest alone. I should have listened. I really should have." The first descent wasn't dramatic, just metal arms, thick cables, and steel containers lowered slowly into the dark. You'd think a moment like that would be breathtaking, even historic. But all I felt was a tightening in my chest. The water swallowed the equipment so fast it looked like it was being pulled, not dropped. The winch groaned, straining against the weight. Crew members muttered to each other about pressure differentials, turbulence. But I know what I saw. The cable wasn't just sinking, it was twitching, like something far below was tugging back. I need you to understand something. I'm not embellishing here. If anything, I'm downplaying it. Because the truth is, I can't prove what we felt. The readings logged nothing unusual. The instruments showed only the usual spikes you'd expect with depth and current. But every single one of us standing at that railing felt it. A pull. A drag from below. I didn't say anything then. Maybe it was because I didn't want to sound paranoid. Or maybe it was because part of me already knew this mission wasn't about research at all. Elena did speak though. Her voice was clipped colder than usual. Lock it down. Don't let that line slip. And the way she said it, the way her eyes darted, just once toward the endless dark below us. That was the first time I wondered if she'd been here before. I should have ended this story here. I should have walked away when I still had the chance. But instead I stayed, because the trench wasn't just pulling on our equipment. It was pulling on me too, and when we lowered the second rig, something down there pulled back. When the winch finally hauled the container back to the deck, I swear to you, it wasn't just water dripping off it. The steel itself looked wet, like it was sweating from the inside, and maybe that's when we should have stopped. But we didn't stop. The deck was slick with seawater and oil, the night air biting cold, though we were nowhere near polar waters. My breath fogged, as if we'd been dragged into some other climate altogether. The crew gathered in a half circle, boots clanging on the metal floor as the winch groaned and set down the sealed container with a metallic thud. It was about the size of a coffin, bolted shut, pressure locked, its glass viewing port obscured by what I first thought was mud. Only later did I realize it wasn't mud at all. Captain Elena barked orders to secure it, her voice sharp, as though she wanted to drown out whatever silence had fallen over us. But silence like that can't be drowned out. It presses in. The trench had given something back. I leaned closer, ignoring the captain's warning glare. Inside the container was liquid, thicker than oil, blacker than ink. It clung to the glass unnaturally, refusing to slosh with the ship's sway. Something shifted in it. I know how that sounds, and maybe I imagined it. That's what I told myself, just pressure, just my tired eyes. Still, I swear I saw the liquid ripple against itself, as though it were breathing. It's inert, I said quickly, louder than I meant to. The words felt rehearsed, like they'd been waiting on my tongue. Probably decomposed organic matter. Sulfur compounds. Nothing unusual, but even as I said it, my stomach twisted. Because it didn't smell like sulfur. Not then. It smelled of nothing at all, or maybe it did. Maybe there was a stench, faint, rotten, metallic. I can't be certain anymore. I remember gagging at the rail, and yet, I also remember nothing but the ocean wind. Do you see what I mean? I'm not lying to you, I just can't trust myself. That night the crew was restless. Most avoided the container, giving it a wide berth, though no one admitted to being afraid. Seamen don't admit things like that, not out loud, but one man lingered. Thomas, the youngest of us, barely in his 20s. He kept staring at the container with wide eyes as if hypnotized. I told him to get some rest, but he only shrugged. "Don't you hear it?" he asked. I laughed nervously. "Hear what?" He tilted his head, listening. "Breathing." I told him he was overtired, that he needed sleep. He nodded slowly. But I caught him later, still standing there, his ear almost pressed to the steel. I should have done more. I should have pulled him away. But the truth is, I didn't want to get close either. The next morning, Thomas was gone. No alarm was raised. No searchlight swept the waves. It was as if he had never been aboard at all. Elena's orders were curt. Focus on the mission. The crew muttered about accidents. He must have fallen overboard. He must have been careless. But the sea was calm that night. Dead calm. I should tell you what really happened to Thomas. But I can't. Not because I don't remember, but because remembering feels like inviting it closer. Maybe he jumped. Maybe he walked. Maybe he was pulled. I'll leave it at that. That day, we brought the container into the lower hold for examination. The air was thick down there, heavy with humidity. Or maybe it was that smell again. Sulphurous, rotting. Or maybe there was no smell at all. I argued for opening it. Elena refused. "We don't know what it is," she snapped. But that was the point, wasn't it? We were here to find out. And something about that black liquid. It felt like it wanted us to. I know how insane that sounds. Liquids don't want, but every time I looked through the fogged glass, I felt it pressing back against my gaze. Shifting. Waiting. Later that evening, the ship shuddered. Just once, like something massive had brushed against the hull. Crew ran to the rails, scanning the water, but there was nothing. Just black waves rolling endlessly. Back in the hold, the container sat quiet. Still sealed, still locked. And yet, I swear, I saw condensation forming on the steel. Tiny beads of moisture running upward instead of down. When I blinked, it was gone. I can't tell you how long we stared at that container. Hours bled into one another. Time seemed different near it. Conversations faltered. Meals went untouched. The rhythm of the ship fell out of sync. I dreamt of the trench, though I wasn't sleeping. The final moment came without warning. I was alone in the hold, or maybe I wasn't alone. Memory blurs here, and I've tried to piece it together, but it never fits cleanly. The container sat in the dim glow of the overhead lamp, steel damp, glass fogged. My eyes burned from staring too long, and then, crack. A sharp sound, like ice splintering. I froze. My breath caught in my throat, another crack. A hairline fracture split across the glass, black liquid pulsing against it from the inside, as though eager to spill free. I stumbled back, heart pounding, the sound echoing in my skull. Because no one touched it, no one moved it. The container was opening on its own. I told myself it didn't make a sound when the glass split open. But that's not true. It did. It breathed, and the sound was wet, heavy, like lungs that hadn't been used in centuries. That's how it began. The moment I stopped pretending we were in control. The glass cracked again, splintering across the container like a spider web. Black liquid dripped onto the floor, thick and slow, almost reluctant to separate from itself. The crew shouted, scrambling back, the clang of boots echoing in the hold. I should have run too, but I couldn't. I stood frozen, watching, waiting, and then it slid out. The creature's body spilled across the steel floor with a sickening weight. Pale, eel-like, slick with the black substance that had held it. It wasn't shaped right. Too long, too thin, but with protrusions. Limbs, if you could call them that. Arms that bent at the wrong angles. Fingers fused into sharp, twitching points. It twitched. Not like a fish gasping for water. Not like anything struggling for life. No. It twitched the way a child might imitate swimming after watching someone else do it. Unnatural. Learned, as if it didn't understand how a living thing was supposed to move. I kept telling myself, it's just a specimen. It's dying. It can't survive out here. But it breathed. I remember saying out loud, it didn't make a sound. And then catching myself, because, no, I had heard it. That awful rasp, that struggling inhale, air rushing into something that shouldn't have had lungs. I don't know why I denied it. Maybe I was already trying to protect myself from the truth. Or maybe it wasn't me speaking. Captain Elena swore under her breath, grabbing the comm. "Contain it, now!" But no one moved. Not at first. We were statues, caught between fear and fascination. That's when Dr. Varga appeared. He'd been part of the team from the beginning, but he kept to himself, buried in charts and data. I never saw him laugh, never even saw him eat. But when he stepped into the hold and saw the creature sprawled across the floor, his face changed. Not fear, not awe, recognition. "Don't touch it," he ordered, his voice low, urgent. "Don't even breathe too close." Elena turned on him, furious. "You knew?" Varga didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the thing, his jaw tight. Finally he whispered, "This isn't a discovery. It's a warning." I should have asked him then, demanded answers, but I didn't. Because the creature twitched again, and all my attention snapped back to it. Its pale skin rippled, not from muscle, but from something beneath. Like currents shifting under water, the limbs bent slowly, testing their range, fingers scraping metal with a screech that made my teeth ache. I wanted to look away. God, I wanted to. But it kept drawing me in. Its head, or what passed for one, tilted toward me. No eyes, no mouth, no features I could name. Just smooth, pale flesh. And yet, I felt it stare. That night, the whispers began. At first, I thought it was the wind through the vents, the creak of the ship settling. But the words, they were too sharp, too deliberate. A sibilant murmur, low and unbroken, like something speaking just out of range. I tried covering my ears. It didn't help. The whispers weren't outside. They were inside. Like the memory of a voice I couldn't forget. I dreamt of the trench. Always the trench. Dreams where I was sinking, deeper and deeper, my lungs burning. Except I could breathe down there, and every time I inhaled, I felt the same rasping breath I'd heard from the creature. When I woke, I wasn't sure I had. I need to be honest with you, or as honest as I can. The crew wasn't whole anymore. Thomas was gone. Everyone else was unraveling. Men who'd been hardened sailors their whole lives suddenly jumped at shadows muttered under their breath. One refused to go near the hold, another locked himself in his cabin, and me. I kept going back. I told myself it was for research, for science, that I had to observe the specimen, record what we'd found. But the truth is, I was drawn to it, like it wanted me there. Every time I stood near the tank, because yes, we put it in a tank, reinforced steel walls and thick glass, my thoughts quieted. The whispers faded. The nightmares grew clearer. I don't remember how long I stared at it each time. Minutes, hours, time bent around it. Varga cornered me once, his face gaunt, eyes burning. "You're listening to it, aren't you?" I stammered. "It doesn't speak." He leaned closer. "Not in words, but you hear it. I know you do. We all do. What is it?" I demanded. "What are we dealing with?" Varga hesitated, then said, "Not new, not unknown, forgotten, buried." His voice cracked. "And it should have stayed that way." The others started to hear it too. Not just whispers, breathing, heavy, laboured breathing echoing through the corridors at night. Some swore they felt hot air against their skin, though nothing was there. One night, I woke with the taste of salt water in my mouth and my pillow soaked through. My lungs ached like I'd been drowning in my sleep, and through it all, the thing in the tank twitched and writhed, never quite still, never quite alive. There are details I can't keep straight anymore. Sometimes I remember the thing as silent, thrashing against the glass with no sound at all. Other times, I remember it keening, a high-pitched wail that rattled my skull. I told the crew it never made a sound, but later I told Elena it breathed. Both things are true. Both things are lies. We kept it contained for days, or maybe it was weeks. Time blurred. Meals skipped, watches missed, men vanishing below deck. Yes, more than one. Don't ask me who. Don't ask me how many. I can't. Some faces blur when I try to recall them. But I know the whispers grew louder with every disappearance. Louder and clearer. They started to form words. Words I can't repeat here. The final night in the hold, I went down alone. Or maybe Varga was there too. The memory shifts like the trench itself. The tank glistened in the dim light, condensation streaking the glass. The thing inside lay coiled, its limbs twitching gently, rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. And then it stopped, perfectly still. I held my breath, leaning closer, waiting for it to move again. That's when I realized. I couldn't hear the whispers anymore. I couldn't hear anything at all. Just silence, vast and suffocating. And then the glass was empty. The tank was empty. The creature was gone. Have you ever seen blood shimmer like seawater under moonlight? I swear I did. But maybe it was only the reflection of my own madness. That's how I should begin, right? A confession. Except the truth is harder to shape than I expected. Slippery like the thing that crawled from that container. And maybe I'm not the one shaping it at all. Maybe it's shaping me. You remember where we left off? The tank was empty. No shattered glass, no broken seals, no trail of slime. Just absence, as though the pale thing had never existed. Captain Elena ordered a full sweep of the lab, barking into her comms. But her voice shook like I've never heard before. Dr. Varga didn't even look surprised. He muttered something I'll never forget. It always finds a host before it disappears. At the time, I didn't ask what he meant. I wish I had. That night we found blood in the lower decks. Not a pool, not splatter, just droplets. Like a breadcrumb trail leading to the storage room. The kind of blood that looks fresh no matter how long it's been there, gleaming almost blue in the light. Inside the room was Torres, the youngest member of the crew, or at least, what used to be Torres. He sat slumped against the wall, eyes wide open, but the whites of his eyes weren't white anymore. They rippled faintly, like someone had poured ink into water, and then frozen it mid-spread. His skin had the same strange sheen, as if his blood had pushed outward, trying to turn him inside out. We dragged him to medical. Dr. Varga ordered blood tests immediately, while Elena stood in the corner, arms crossed, chewing the inside of her cheek until I thought she'd bleed herself. I tried to stay detached, clinical, scientific. But when I slid the needle in, Torres laughed, not loud, not human. Just a wet, bubbling sound in his throat, like water trying to breathe. I told myself it was oxygen deprivation. I told myself anything but the truth. The first vial of blood was wrong, not just abnormal, impossible. The cells didn't look human anymore. They pulsed under the microscope, like tiny hearts, beating on their own rhythm. Some split in two and then rejoined, merging like oil drops. Others branched outward in jagged threads, weaving together into patterns that reminded me of coral, living architecture building itself, and then the seawater smell hit me. At first, I thought it was the lab. But no, it was the blood. The fluid itself carried the stench of brine and rot, like the deep trenches we were mapping. I blinked, and for just 1 second, I swear I saw something swimming inside the droplet under the glass.